now I want to turn it over and invite up my dear friend Ahmed Salah.
Well, I wish to thank Starhawk for this incredible introduction. I'm really very honored. It's a great honor to be here today with great figures such as Starhawk, of course, and Joanna Macy, and being with all of you here. Thank you. Thanks, Peter. Peter Mincini, of course, a famous video maker for activists here. This is supposed to be an event on hope, right? So let's talk about hope. What is hope? Hope is what you have when everything seems to be impossible, but you still have it inside so that you can make that impossible possible. When we look back at Egypt, it was a country under the same dictator for 3 decades. He ruled with the power of his security forces. Over 1.5 million individuals were in the payroll of the Ministry of the Interior. 1.7 million were in the police in Egypt. Not to protect the people, but to protect the regime of Hosni Mubarak. Added to those, 500,000, about 450,000 in the military. So this is a situation where things seem impossible, right? The media is controlled. Half of the people are forced into ignorance. The gap between the wealthy and the poor keeps going so wide that you can hardly see one end to the other. And what can we do? Well, of course, we could do. We resisted. We went out in protests and got arrested and got beaten up. And they would terrorize us, and we'll go back again and again and again. I was tortured in prison. I almost lost my life a few times, but came out, and we continued. Thank you. The thing is, it's never that impossible. There is always something that we can do. Because when we look at the picture, yeah, they have all the weapons. They have all the soldiers and the training and this and that. What do we have? We have ourselves. We have our numbers, and we have our desire for peace, for equality, for equal rights for everyone. We are fighting for no harm, for no injustice. So we use non-violence in the face of violence. And many people may fall under the false impression that non-violence is a luxury. Oh, you just want to sit there and meditate, and then they come and bash you, and then what are you going to do? This is not non-violence. I am sorry. Non-violence is when you constantly do your best not to cause harm to those who are trying to harm you, while maintaining your stand, while protecting yourself, while doing your best that everyone is safe, organizing, standing together. When we started the revolution in 2011, many of you have seen the big gatherings, like in Tahrir, but it wasn't the only place. It was all over the country. All these huge protests, we have organized them with gates that were makeshift, of course, where everyone coming in must accept to be searched, must show their ID, so that we know they are not cops undercover. And if anyone has anything that can be used as a weapon, they are not allowed to come in if they would keep that weapon. That weapon must be taken out. So no weapons were allowed in any of these things. But of course we would get under attack. How did we defend ourselves? Using stones that we break as small as we can so that they are not fatal, but they are deterrent. When there is an incursion, we would use Molotov cocktails. Yeah, I taught how to make Molotov cocktails, but not to harm. Because then you would need a buffer zone, because these guys, they come with machine guns. They try to gun you, and we need a buffer zone and no man land so that you can hide behind your barricades. And fire does this job. When a soldier falls injured, we would take care of them, we would treat them, and send them back. Constantly, and using speaker phones, we are your brothers and sisters. We are your parents and children. What are you doing? You are killing your own family. We are not here against you. Where will you be in 10 years? Do you think you would keep your rank? What is the fate of your children? What do you think will happen to your parents? Maybe in a street, in a checkpoint. Maybe this, maybe that, constantly. They would have to keep changing the soldiers that they put in front of us because they get pacified. We did tremendous victories. We actually ousted a regime that was so strong, so stable, for 30 years, that no one had imagined for a moment that it could fall. Not only that regime, when the military followed the first time the Supreme Council of Armed Forces, we managed to get rid of them too. When an Islamist, fascist regime took over because of a forged deal made by Washington between the Islamists and the military, we also brought that down. Unfortunately, now we have the worst regime of all, the Military Act II. Now they know nobody here in the West is going to question them, whatever they are doing. So they are bombing parts of the country every day. There has been world record, in the number of executions that would be issued in one session by a judge. Like there was a time when one judge issued over 2,000 sentences of death in 48 hours. That the joke was, if he had stood up in court and tried to read the names of those he had signed their execution, he wouldn't be able to finish them within that time. Including 3 generations in a same family. I have a member of the organization that I have been leading who was executed at the age of 19 by that regime for the charge of being part of a terrorist attack that took place while he and most of those who were implicated in this terrorist attack were actually in prison being tortured. So they have made the impossible of being in 2 places at the same time, I guess. Well, it seems very dark, it seems very hard. But when we succeeded, it wasn't because we looked at how hard it is. It was because we looked at, to use even a word that may be surprising, because of love. Because when you love your country, when you love your fellow human being, love here doesn't mean, I want to be next to you. Love means, okay, there is this wonderful example about love that I really like, which says that if you like a flower, you could pluck it. You fancy that flower, so you want it. You have it. But if you love a flower, what are you going to do? You're going to water it. You're going to take care of it. You want the best for it. Love means that we wish the best for everyone. Everyone deserves to have their dignity. Everyone deserves to be free, to breathe clean air, to drink clean water, not to be poisoned, not to be oppressed, not to be tortured or killed. An important thing that we need to know about this revolution, which was a successful revolution, what followed was because of other things the political process that followed, which was manipulated by countries that had a strong interest in not seeing democratic change in that part of the world. The Gulf countries funneled huge amount of money for the counter-revolution. You got the deep state in Egypt, you got the military, you got all these institutions, the businessmen, the goons of Hosni Mubarak, and Israel that had the luxury of having someone who wouldn't mind if they make incursions in Sinai every second day. Killing, bombing, it doesn't matter, because Sisi needs them, this general. And so the United States looks the other way. At the time of the Democrats, now it's even worse with the Republicans. Now it's clear support for that fascist regime, while actually having diplomatic relations with this regime is against the laws of the United States, because this is a military that got to power by a coup d'etat, starting his rule by the massacre of over 2,000 people in 2 squares. Documented by Amnesty International and other organizations. This is not exaggeration. The real numbers are even higher. We say 4,000, they say 2. The thing is, we need to learn how these processes happen so that we could learn from the successes and the failures, instead of repeating the same mistakes, because we don't learn from each other's experience. When I was at the beginning of my activism, I was going crazy trying to learn how can we do this in the best possible way? How can we do that in the most effective way? How can this happen in a safe way that would ensure the safety of those who would do it against a brutal enemy? And I didn't find many answers. I found answers that were more literature than actual, real, revolutionary handbooks or something. So we had to resort to learning the hard way, trial and error, making many mistakes, building organizations that would get infiltrated, sabotaged, everything that you actually go through here. And we continue. In my case, I worked on more than one level. I would go to Washington, I would have negotiations in the Congress, the Senate. I even had talks at the White House, State Department, of course, even the Pentagon. I went to the Pentagon, I had meetings there. Why? Because the United States is the biggest supporter of the tyranny in Egypt. And they have to know that, this is wrong. But it's not that I'm saying, oh, you're my enemy. No, we can be friends. Just be friends with the people. Stop helping their abusers. Stop helping their killers. I think I had very good talks that actually helped at the beginning of the revolution. There was also, I had, for example, I gave a speech, a testimony at the Congress by invitation in May 2009, a couple of years before we ousted Mubarak. And I think that this had helped at the beginning, not later. Things changed afterwards. And without this kind of support, without this kind of attention, activists in these parts of the world are left alone. This is what's going on now. Now, my colleagues mostly are either dead or in prison. I got a colleague who's sentenced 15 years in prison for protesting. This is his charge. It's not that he was protesting and then they made him accused of murder. No, I'm saying this is the charge that he is serving 15 years in prison for. Okay? So we have this going on over there, while nobody is looking. Which also reminds me of the dilemma of the hypocrisy about Hafiz al-Assad. Assad of Syria, Bashar al-Assad, son of Hafiz al-Assad, and all those people. The worst criminals, the worst murderers. And some people are just talking in this as a political thing. Let's take this team or that team. Whose team Trump on? Maybe we should go on the other side. Whose team is Hillary Clinton on? Maybe we can go to the other side. And whatever. We cannot condone, as human beings, systematic murder, massacres, the use of forbidden weapons, the use of regular weapons to kill civilians. We cannot condone any injustice that would befall on our fellow human beings because we are all equal. We are individuals. An individual in Central African Republic and an individual in the Eskimo and an individual in Shanghai and an individual in, I don't know, Tucson, anywhere is an individual. They can have any of the qualities of us human beings. We can be good, we can be bad. We can do incredible things that are wonderful, or we can do incredible things that are harmful. But we are individuals everywhere, human beings. Islam is not about hate. All this is, I don't know, like this demonization of quarter of the population of the world is crazy, really, to be honest. Like, it just makes me speechless with all the misinformation being spread. But anyway, let's go back to our subject here. So, hope means that we should never give up. We should keep trying. When we give up, when we stop, this is when we are defeated. Do we want to be defeated? No. Then we shouldn't stop. But then we also need to learn. Maybe things are supposed to be a little different. Maybe if we try things a little differently, it would have a different results. We look around into the different experiences and we try to see this. For instance, in our experience, when we have been doing those protests, when we even ousted Mubarak, it was very important, as I said, that we never use weapons. Because once we would use this, what would this do? On the other side, those that we constantly are telling that we are not against you, so we are making it hard for them to actually kill us, would find an excuse. Oh, you're shooting at me? All right, I will show you who can shoot better. And then they're gonna they could finish us all. So it's not a luxury to choose nonviolence. It is the strategic thing, because what do we have? Do we have the training? Do we have the weapons? No, and even if we did, do we want a war? We need to approach with love. We need to approach with peace. But we need to defend ourselves when we are under attack using nonviolent means. I have put in my book the story, the whole story, which is not what happened in 2011 only. Because the Egyptian Revolution was not, as you heard here, the result of Facebook and Twitter. That's, I'm sorry to say, ridiculous. Most of the Egyptians do not have access to internet. How could this have had worked? Most of the Egyptians, when they would go to an internet cafe to use internet, they would have to present their ID card, so somebody will take all the information, put it in this workstation that they have used in order to give this report every night to the political police, known as state security. So everyone is deterred from using public computers also for political organizing. This was a huge problem for us. We've been trying to use internet for years. But we realized, no, this doesn't work. We should find other alternatives. This is what we have to do. Like, when we see something that is not working, we should try other alternatives. What happened in 2011 was based on plans that actually came out in WikiLeaks from 2008, which I have presented at that time to Margaret Scobie, the former ambassador in Cairo, And the reason for providing our proposed plans for change to the United States ambassador was to say, don't worry, this is not against you. This is like just, we want to be free, and we can be friends, but just don't intervene against us, please. Stop supporting our oppressors. There are many cables from WikiLeaks that had other things that happened in some of these meetings. So I was doing this because I was playing on more than one level. There was this, but there was organizing on the ground. So I had to do that. After the destruction of our initial movement, which was called Youth for Change, when I was in prison, and it was infiltrated and sabotaged, we started another organization in which I was the strategist from behind the scenes. And it was called April 6. It didn't do as well as I hoped. It just became a big name. But the plans that took place for what happened on January 25th were based on actual street organizing. Nothing to do with phones, nothing to do with computers or internet. And it was based on, just in short, if you would see the whole thing in the book, if you would be interested, particular like groups that would work on every neighborhood to prepare the neighborhood, and then to start on the day of the revolution from the narrowest streets, so that their small number would sound big enough, they would sound loud enough, they can attract more people. They go to the bigger streets until they can have large numbers. This should happen in as many different spots as possible in every city, and they should move simultaneously to the central point in every city. And this happened only in one geographical area, which starts from Cairo in the south all the way to Alexandria in the north and the Suez Canal in the east. That area of the delta, this is the only area, the one geographical area where the revolution started. And this was the area in which I have traveled through. I have given the crash course, I've given the plans and the instructions. And to my own surprise, it worked in this magnificent way, which of course I'm full of gratitude for. It's a miracle. Thank you. Thank you. We can all learn from each other's experience. For example, in our experience, we have learned that if you totally block a road or a bridge, people will only go against you. But if you take one part of the bridge and allow another part for the cars to move, so they would slow down next to you and they show you support. So we always did that. That seemed to be a wonderful discovery, and we loved it. Things, of course, like how do you deal with tear gas, for example? Of course, we had to learn all the drill. Like to use alkaline gel, to use onions. You would always have an onion in the pocket and a small piece of cloth. So once the tear gas comes, you smash it and you use it as a gas mask because it filters the gas. But it's not about just this. Most importantly, it's about building coalitions. How do we stand together? And this is the most important thing. So the wonderful thing about the Egyptian revolution is what? There is no leader. No, it's leaderless. It doesn't matter if I had the plan, it's leaderless. We make sure that it is. We make sure there is no one big organization, because this is the way to hell, let's say. This is where your enemy would have a target and can destroy you. But when there is no particular structure, when it's all out there like bubbles you can't catch everywhere, but are just flying all over you, they can't do anything. Which is like what happened on January 25th, when we did that plan, and numerous protests started in various locations, neighborhoods in every city in the north of Egypt where I told you. The police was shocked by this because they thought it would be like all the other internet calls that are a failure that we had before. They didn't realize how much actual work on the ground we did. And they, in the face of all this, they just withdrew their troops to fortify their lines around the sensitive parts of every city so that they could clash with the protesters. And we got the numbers. When we do this, how do we do it? When you talk with somebody, you don't say, hey, you know, politically, this guy is wrong and da. No. You don't do this. What we would do, we go to buses, we go to like places where normal people are, and hey, are you happy? Do you have any problem? And of course somebody would say, yeah, there is this, there is that. Okay, yeah. And you, and everyone will tell their problem. Okay, guys, where do you think this problem is coming from? The answers are easy. How do we change this? How do we solve these problems? The answers are easy. They come from the people. You don't impose it on anyone. You don't use politics. You don't use anything like that. It's all about the people. It's apolitical, even though it is political. Because you take out the components that cause clashing, fracturism. Oh, I am an Islamist, I am a communist, I am a pagan, I am, I don't know, whatever. Like, you cannot, if we are going to look for differences, we'll find differences even between two brothers or two sisters. It's not about that. It's always about what do we all share? What are we all upset about? That is right, that is good, that is for our rights, all of us, not the rights of one group over another, not the rights of white Anglo-Saxons against blacks or this or that. Everyone. In Egypt there is discrimination, but it's not like here. The people in Sinai, for example, they are not allowed to have jobs or homes, to own their homes. They are treated as second-class citizens. And therefore now they are on armed rebellion against this brutal regime. Not because ideologically they are following ISIL. ISIL didn't exist when we did the revolution. If things would have moved in the right direction, as I have presented a full plan in February 2011, 2 weeks after we ousted Mubarak, in Washington, at the White House, at the Congress, at the State Department, at the Pentagon, which was received very well, by the way. If that would have been followed, you would have seen a very different Middle East. I don't have time to go through this because it's like I'm in my last minute. But I would love to, if there is another chance to, if any people would be interested in learning about more of these details, of course, to say more. Just to end this, I would like to say that change is possible. Change is near. Nothing is impossible. What we need is to build up large coalitions that are not hierarchical, that are not built on committees, that are not about unanimous decisions, that no. Large, loose coalitions of small groups headed toward one thing, that is equality for everyone, protection of the planet, you know, the main things that we cannot disagree about. And let that start to build up, to grow, you know, organically, and you will see the results. What we did in 2011 was a result of work that started 10 years before. We have been working all these years to break the taboos, to get the people awakened, the people who thought a president figure is a demigod that no one can ever say the blasphemy of a word against, even if you are alone, because the walls have ears. It became normal that people all around would just curse him with the worst insults. That sounds like, you know, are you really serious? Is this a great achievement? Well, that broke the taboos. This cracked the walls that were protecting this. a tyranny is as strong as the people who believe in it. Let's not believe in the strength of the tyranny. Let's break it down.